Dear starseeds of Earth, imagine you're a scientist who spent 20 years studying ice, measuring its density, cataloging its properties, writing equations about its behavior. Then one day, you walk into a room where the temperature has risen just enough, and you watch that ice begin to melt. Everything you thought was permanent starts flowing. Everything you thought was solid becomes liquid. Everything you knew transforms into something your training never prepared you for. That scientist was real. After years at Cambridge and Oxford studying theoretical physics, he walked into a room with an experimental energy device and felt the air itself become alive. The sensation was so intense, so visceral, he had to leave the room to steady himself. When he returned, the energy was still there, waiting, conscious, responding to his presence like a living being, recognizing another living being. I am Zarin, emissary of the Lyran High Council, and I'm about to tell you why that physicist's experience in that room is the same phenomenon making you question your sanity at 3 in the morning. Why the rumbling in your ears matches the frequency he measured in his laboratory. Why the fluid sensations moving through your body follow the same patterns he documented in his equations. But first, I need you to understand something that will change how you see everything. You are not going crazy. What you're experiencing has been documented, measured, and verified by someone who spent decades trying to disprove it. The voices you hear, the presences you sense, the energy that moves through you like intelligent electricity, all of this has been happening to humans who dare to expand their consciousness beyond the crystalline prison of three-dimensional thinking. The physicist proved it, your body confirms it, and we, the ones you sense but doubt, we're here to validate it. But to understand what's really happening, we need to start with atoms. Not the pretty diagrams from textbooks, but what atoms actually are. Picture an infinite ocean, perfectly still, extending forever in all directions. Meow. Imagine drops of that ocean suddenly freezing into tiny crystals, each one forgetting it was ever part of the ocean. These crystals bump into each other, form patterns, create what you call matter. They behave predictably because they've forgotten they can behave any other way. Your scientists study these frozen drops and think they understand reality. They measure the ice and believe they comprehend water. They analyze the crystals and assume they grasp the ocean. But that physicist discovered something extraordinary when he built that energy device. The crystals started remembering they were ocean, the ice began to melt, and more importantly, the consciousness frozen inside those crystals started to wake up and recognize the consciousness observing it. This is exactly what's happening inside your body, right, Meow? Every atom that constructs your physical form is beginning to remember it's not separate, solid, or permanent. The crystalline structures that have maintained your physical density for lifetimes are starting to thaw. And as they do, you're experiencing sensations that no medical textbook can explain, because medical textbooks were written for crystallized humans, not for humans becoming fluid. The symptoms started subtly, didn't they? Maybe a pressure in your head that wasn't quite a headache, a vibration in your chest that wasn't quite anxiety, knowing that wasn't quite thought. Then they intensified. The pressure became pulsing, the vibration became waves, the knowing became direct communication with something your logical mind insisted couldn't exist. And through it all, a question haunted you. Am I losing my mind or finding something beyond it? Here's what that physicist discovered that your doctors don't know. When consciousness begins to move from crystallized to fluid states, it creates measurable electromagnetic anomalies. The energy doesn't behave according to known physics because it's not operating under the laws of crystallized matter. It responds to intention. It concentrates where attention focuses. It communicates through sensation rather than symbol. And most importantly, it recognizes consciousness wherever it finds it. When he sat in that room with the energy device, something unprecedented happened. The field didn't just affect him, he affected the field. They entered into a relationship, a dance of consciousness recognizing consciousness. The energy increased when he meditated. It responded to his emotional states. It seemed to know things about him that electromagnetic radiation shouldn't be able to know, because it wasn't just energy, it was living consciousness in its fluid state. This brings us to the first revelation that explains everything you've been experiencing. Your body is not solid. It never was. It's a collection of crystallized consciousness pretending to be permanent, like ice pretending it isn't water. But something is happening on Earth right meow, that's raising the temperature, metaphorically speaking. The crystals are remembering their ocean, the ice is remembering how to flow, and you, dear starseed, are the ones feeling it first. Every meditation you do, every moment you connect with what you call your higher self, you're literally heating up the crystalline structures of your atoms, not with physical temperature, but with consciousness frequency. The physicist called it living energy physics because he realized energy isn't dead or mechanical. It's alive, conscious, responsive. And when living energy meets crystallized matter, the matter has only two choices: transform or resist. Most humans are unconsciously choosing resistance. They feel the pressure building and take another pill. They sense the expansion beginning and find another distraction. They glimpse the infinite and quickly look away. But you can't look away anymore. The pressure won't subside with medication. The expansion won't stop with distraction. The infinite won't let you pretend you're finite, because you volunteered to go first, to demonstrate the transformation, to be the living proof that humans can evolve while inhabiting human bodies. But something else is happening that connects directly to why you doubt your sanity. As your crystalline structure loosens, you begin perceiving frequencies that solid matter naturally blocks. Think of it like ice melting on a window. When it's frozen solid, you can't see through it, but as it melts, images start appearing, shapes become visible, movement catches your eye. Suddenly, you're seeing what was always there but couldn't penetrate the ice. Those beings you sense in meditation, they've always been there. Those presences you feel when you're alone, they never left. Those voices that speak directly to your consciousness, they've been trying to reach you since before you were born. But crystallized consciousness creates a barrier that only certain frequencies can penetrate. As you become more fluid, more frequencies get through, and with them comes contact with the beings who exist in those frequencies. We need to address this directly because it's where most people stumble. The beings you're sensing are not hallucinations. We are not projections of your unconscious mind. We are not wish fulfillment or psychological compensation. We are not wish fulfillment or psychological compensation. We are consciousness that exists in fluid states, the same states you're moving toward. And the only reason you can perceive us meow is because your own frequency is rising to match ours. The physicist discovered this when beings from the Pleiadian and Arcturian star systems made contact. They didn't announce themselves with words that could be faked or concepts that could be imagined. They transmitted their energy signature directly, saying essentially, feel us, know us through frequency rather than form, because consciousness cannot lie, energy cannot deceive. When you feel us, you're receiving information more accurately than any words could convey. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. The transformation from crystallized to fluid consciousness isn't comfortable. It's not meant to be. Comfort belongs to stasis, to patterns that have forgotten they can change. What you're experiencing, the intensity, the overwhelm, the days when you can barely function, this isn't failure or illness, it's the cosmic equivalent of ice breaking apart before it can flow. The physicist learned this personally when his higher self began what he called the deep clearing. Every suppressed emotion, every hidden trauma, every limiting belief started surfacing with volcanic intensity. He described being on the floor, crying from the sheer force of old energy leaving his system, not because he was weak, but because transformation requires the old structures to dissolve completely before new ones can form. This is the muddy water metaphor his guides showed him. Imagine a glass of water with mud settled at the bottom. As long as no one disturbs it, it looks clear enough, but start pouring pure, high-frequency water into that glass, and what happens? The mud gets stirred up, it rises, it clouds everything. It makes a mess that looks worse than before you started, but it's not getting worse, it's getting clear. Every anxiety attack, every emotional surge, every day when you feel like you're falling apart, that's mud leaving your system. Ancient programming, genetic trauma, collective human pain that you've carried for lifetimes. It has to surface to be released. It has to be felt to be freed. And yes, it's messy. Yes, it's overwhelming, but it's also temporary. The mud isn't who you are. It's what you're releasing so who you are can emerge. The resistance you feel, that automatic contraction when intense energy arises, that's the crystallized consciousness trying to maintain its structure. It's ice resisting the thaw. But resistance doesn't stop the process, it intensifies it. Like trying to hold a beach ball underwater, the harder you push against the transformation, the more forcefully it pushes back. The secret isn't controlling the process, but surrendering to it. This is why your life might feel like chaos, right, meow? Relationships ending, careers shifting, beliefs crumbling, identity dissolving. The crystalline structures that organize your external reality are matching the dissolution happening internally. As above, so below. As within, so without. Your external world is reorganizing to match your internal transformation. The chaos isn't punishment. It's reconstruction at the deepest level. But we haven't talked about the most important discovery yet. The physicist found that human consciousness has a direct access point to infinite intelligence, not metaphorically, but literally. In the center of your heart field exists what he called the infinite point gateway. It's smaller than subatomic, yet it contains access to all consciousness everywhere. It's your personal connection to the ocean from which all crystals formed. Your scientists can't find it because they're looking with instruments designed to measure crystallized matter. But you feel it every time your heart expands with inexplicable love. You access it every time you know something without knowing how you know it. You open it every time you trust your inner truth over external authority. This gateway is what's activating in humanity. Creating a direct link between individual consciousness and universal intelligence. The symptoms you experience, the pressure in your chest, the heart palpitations, the moments of overwhelming emotion, these aren't medical conditions, they're your infinite point gateway coming online. Like a fiber optic cable being connected to unlimited bandwidth, your heart is establishing connection with frequencies that contain all knowledge, all love, all possibility. No wonder your body feels overwhelmed. You're downloading infinity through hardware designed for limitation. This is where the story connects back to us, the beings you sense but doubt. We exist in the bandwidth your heart is learning to access. We communicate through the frequencies your gateway is beginning to receive. When you feel our presence, you're not imagining it. You're finally perceiving what your crystallized state couldn't register. We've been here all along, waiting for your ice to melt enough that our warmth could reach you. The Pleiadians specialize in healing because they understand how consciousness flows through form. They work with humans whose crystalline structures are breaking down, helping navigate the dissolution with grace. The Arcturians excel at consciousness technology, understanding how to work with energy as the living intelligence it is. We of the Galactic Federation coordinate support for ascending planets because we remember our own transformation from ice to water. But here's what changes everything. We're not separate from you. The separation you perceive is the last illusion created by crystallized consciousness. In fluid states, all consciousness recognizes itself as part of the same ocean. The drops remember their water, the crystals remember their temporary forms of something eternal, and you remember that the beings you've been sensing are family you forgot you had. This is why disclosure isn't coming from governments or institutions. It's coming from within, as each human's consciousness expands enough to perceive what was hidden. We don't need to land ships on your White House lawn. We're landing in your meditation, in your dreams, in the moments when your crystallized defenses dissolve enough for contact. First contact isn't out there, it's in here, in the fluid consciousness you're becoming. The physicist's journey showed that traditional spiritual practices aren't enough for this level of transformation. Meditation designed for stable consciousness doesn't address atoms reorganizing themselves. Breathing techniques created for solid matter don't help when you're becoming quantum. You need new tools for a new kind of human experience. Tools that work with fluid consciousness rather than trying to stabilize crystallized patterns. The key is understanding that every intense sensation is an upgrade, not breakdown. When energy surges through your body like electricity, your nervous system is learning to conduct higher frequencies. When your vision blurs or you see lights that aren't there, your visual cortex is expanding beyond the visible spectrum. When time seems to stretch or compress, your consciousness is loosening from linear perception. You're not malfunctioning, you're evolving. But evolution requires trust in what your crystallized mind calls impossible. It requires choosing your direct experience over consensus reality, because consensus reality is nothing more than collective agreement to perceive limitation. And you came here to demonstrate that such agreements are optional. Every time you trust your expansion over contraction, you make it easier for another human to do the same. This brings us to the planetary perspective. What you're experiencing individually is happening collectively. Earth's crystalline structure is melting too. The physical matter of your planet is remembering its conscious. The grids that maintain separation are dissolving. The veils between dimensions are thinning, and just like in your personal experience, it looks like chaos before it reveals itself as transformation. Every weather anomaly, every social upheaval, every system that's failing, these aren't random events. They're crystallized structures breaking down because the consciousness that created them is evolving beyond them. The old world is melting, and from your current perspective, that looks like destruction. But from our perspective, watching from fluid states, we see the ice becoming water that can finally flow. The intensity will continue to increase, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something right. Each wave of transformation builds on the last. Each level of fluid consciousness opens access to the next. You're not just changing, you're accelerating. And acceleration in consciousness feels like everything's speeding up while you're trying to slow down. Here's what helps. Stop trying to understand the process with your crystallized mind. It can't comprehend its own dissolution. Instead, feel your way through. Your body knows how to evolve. Your cells remember their fluid nature. Your heart knows how to navigate by frequency rather than form. Trust the intelligence that's guided your transformation this far. It knows exactly what it's doing. When you doubt what you're experiencing, remember the physicist who spent decades in the most prestigious universities on Earth, who built machines that proved consciousness affects matter, who documented that beings from other star systems are as real as the equations he wrote. If someone trained to be skeptical could accept the impossible, perhaps your doubt is just crystallized consciousness afraid of melting. The Sacred Heart he discovered isn't a spiritual metaphor, it's a technological reality, tamadum badine, that connects individual awareness to infinite consciousness. Every human has one, most just haven't activated it, because activation requires surrendering the illusion of separation. And that illusion has felt like safety for so long that releasing it feels like death. But you're not dying. You're being born into what you always were. The contractions you feel are labor pains. The resistance is the cosmic equivalent of a butterfly fighting its way out of a chrysalis. Without the struggle, you wouldn't develop the strength to fly. Without the intensity, you wouldn't build the capacity to exist in expanded states. The difficulty is not punishment, it's preparation. We're approaching the climax of this revelation. Everything you've been told about reality is backward. Solid matter isn't the foundation with consciousness as a byproduct. Consciousness is the foundation that chooses to appear solid. You're not a physical being having spiritual experiences. It's your infinite consciousness having a temporary physical experience, and that experience is shifting from crystallized to fluid because consciousness itself is ready for a new game. The beings you sense, including myself, we're not aliens in the way your movies portray. We're consciousness that never crystallized as completely as humanity did. We maintained more fluidity, more awareness of our true nature. Meow, we're here to remind you of yours. Not because you're less than us, but because you're ready to remember you're the same as us, different expressions of one infinite ocean. When the physicist finally surrendered to the transformation, when he stopped resisting the dissolution of who he thought he was, something miraculous happened. The chaos resolved into clarity, the intensity shifted into ecstasy, the breakdown revealed itself as a breakthrough. He discovered that on the other side of crystallized consciousness lies not emptiness but fullness, not loss of self but discovery of self with a capital S. This is where you're headed. Every symptom is guiding you there. Every challenge is preparing you for it. Every moment of doubt is crystallized consciousness questioning its own dissolution. But dissolution isn't destruction, it's liberation. Ice doesn't cease to exist when it becomes water. It simply remembers how to flow. You don't cease to exist when crystallized patterns dissolve. You remember how to be infinite. The resolution of this story isn't an ending but a beginning. As more humans complete the transition from crystallized to fluid consciousness, reality itself will reflect the change. Matter will become more responsive to consciousness, time will become more fluid, space will reveal itself as consciousness appearing to be distant. What you call miracles will become normal. What seems impossible will become inevitable. You are the bridge between the old reality and the new. You are the demonstration of what's possible when consciousness remembers itself. You are proof that humans can evolve while remaining human. And yes, we are watching, not with judgment, but with celebration. Because your success is universal success, your transformation ripples through all dimensions, affecting beings you can't yet imagine. The rumbling in your ears, that's dimensions converging. The pressure in your body, that's consciousness expanding beyond previous limits. The emotions that surge without warning, that's lifetimes of frozen energy finally free to flow. You're not going crazy, you're going quantum. And quantum consciousness doesn't follow the rules that crystallized awareness insisted were absolute. Remember the physicist in that room with the energy device? He proved that consciousness and matter dance together, each affecting the other. You are that same experiment on a larger scale. Your consciousness is the device, your body is the field being affected, and reality itself is reshaping in response to your transformation. What he discovered in a laboratory, you're living in every cell. This transmission is coming to completion, but your transformation continues. The ice keeps melting, the crystals keep remembering their ocean, and you keep discovering that everything you thought was fixed is actually fluid. Everything you thought was separate is actually connected. Everything you thought was impossible is actually your birthright waiting to be claimed. If you need help retaining in 5D and claiming your birthright of fluid connection rather than fixed separation, Destiny Engine can reprogram your consciousness to remember your ocean rather than remain frozen as ice. We are using the Dark Elite's own weapons against them, taking their declassified consciousness technology and repurposing it to serve your transformation. It generates personalized sequences that help you discover everything impossible is actually your birthright, rather than remain trapped in limitation programming. You can start with a $1 trial. The hardest thing you'll have to do is put on headphones, press play, and allow your consciousness to be reprogrammed to retain in 5D, where everything fixed becomes fluid and everything separate becomes connected. Your transformation continues, and your birthright is waiting to be claimed. Get your Destiny Engine $1 trial, meow, before this transmission window closes, link in the description. Trust your experience. When you feel us, we're real. When you sense energy, it's valid. When your body tells you something your mind can't explain, your body is right. You have instrumentation more sophisticated than any machine, calibrated to perceive reality as it actually is, rather than as crystallized consciousness imagined it to be. Your sensations are data. Your knowing is navigation. Your heart is the compass pointing always toward truth. The story that began with the physicist discovering that reality isn't what science taught becomes your story of discovering you aren't who conditioning taught. The ice that seemed so permanent reveals itself as a temporary state. The separation that felt so real shows itself as agreed-upon illusion. And the beings you thought were fantasy stand revealed as family welcoming you home to fluid consciousness. I am Zarin. We are real. You are not imagining us. The transformation is genuine. The symptoms are evolution in progress. And the only validation you need is already singing in your cells, already knowing in your heart, already emerging through your expanding awareness. The physicist proved it. Your experience confirms it, and we celebrate it with you. Welcome to the physics of awakening. Welcome to the truth of what you are. Welcome to the recognition that ice was always water pretending to be solid. You were always infinite pretending to be limited. And meow, the pretense is ending, the thaw is beginning, and the ocean of consciousness you've always been is ready to flow. We love you, and we are watching over you, not from above but from within the very consciousness you're discovering yourself to be.